guide to specific financial, legal, or tax advice. Consult your own financial, tax, and estate planning advisors before making any investment decisions. Armstrong may contact you to offer investment advisory services. You're tuned in to Money Matters Boston, 1120 a.m. WBNW. This is WBNW, 1120 a.m., the Money Matters Radio Network. This is the Money Matters Radio Network, WBNW 1120 AM and W275CM FM, Concord, Boston, the Money Matters Radio Network.
It happens all over Massachusetts.
Can you tie my shoes?
In every home and every community.
Be careful on your bike.
Learning can happen anytime, anywhere.
We'll see you at practice this weekend.
And no matter how learning takes place in your family's life, DESE is there as your partner. The Massachusetts Department of Elementary and Secondary Education. Never stop learning. Find out more at mass.gov/back-to-school.
Sponsored by the Massachusetts Department for Elementary and Secondary Education.
This is Tucker Silva with the Financial Exchange Show, and I'm joined today by estate planning attorney Todd Lutsky, a partner with the law firm of Cushing & Dolan with a master's in taxation. And today we're talking about choosing beneficiaries for your IRA. Todd, what is the best way to deal with qualified retirement plan assets, and can they be transferred to these irrevocable Medicaid trusts?
So this is a tough asset in general. When you're dealing with retirement plan assets, it's difficult from an estate planning standpoint or a Medicaid planning standpoint to deal with them. Why? Because they have both an income tax component and an estate tax component, right? They're taxable when you take them out, and when you die, they're subject to your estate tax. So the general way to do this would be, one, you can name the spouse as the beneficiary of the IRA, or you can name the kids the beneficiary of the IRA, or sometimes you can name the trust the beneficiary or the estate the beneficiary. But it all depends on the size of your estate, the size of the IRA. But the one thing you really can't do is you can't take the asset and transfer it to the irrevocable trust or revocable trust while you're living. Otherwise, it will create a income taxable event. So tough to plan for those in advance unless you name the estate the beneficiary.
Educate yourself about the estate planning process. Request your free copy of Todd's brand new guide called Why Name Your Estate an IRA Beneficiary right now by calling 866-848-5699. That's 848-5699, or you can request a copy from their website, legalexchangeshow.com.
The proceeding was paid for, and the views expressed are solely those of Cushing & Dolan. Cushing & Dolan and or Armstrong Advisory may contact you offering legal or investment services. Cushing and Armstrong do not endorse each other and are not affiliated. Every single day, more than 2,000 U.S. companies face a cyber threat or attack. The Boston Red Sox in Fenway Park chose Centripetal as their official cyber network security partner to ensure the protection of their network and ballpark. Intelligence is the answer to protecting your network, and Centripetal is the global leader of intelligence-powered cybersecurity. The choice is yours. Are you going to be another one of those attacked companies? Or are you ready to experience a radical new cybersecurity solution? Find out why the Red Sox chose Centripetal at www.centripetal.ai.
The Financial Exchange and Veterans Development Corporation are proud partners of the Disabled American Veterans Department of Massachusetts. The DAV provides thousands of hours of voluntary services at our VA medical centers and is the only DAV department in the country to lead a veterans housing initiative for single veterans and for those with families. These programs are critical to serving our veterans in their time of need. You can help our great American heroes by making a donation today. Please visit davma.org. That's davma.org.
To fully maximize your Social Security benefits, it's important to understand how Social Security may affect your taxes. Hi, this is Mike Armstrong from the Armstrong Advisory Group, and when deciding to collect Social Security benefits, it's essential to consider how those benefits interact with your other income sources, your tax situation, and your long-term financial goals. As an example, if you have tax-free or after-tax options in retirement, you can structure your financial plan to manage your future tax burden. Collecting Social Security too early without careful planning could limit your ability ability to manage taxes later in life. Our new free guide is called Social Security and Taxes, and it unpacks these issues and more. Get your free copy today by calling 800-393-4001. That's 800-393-4001.
The proceeding was paid for by Armstrong Advisory Group, a registered investment advisor. Nothing in the ad or in any Armstrong guide is specific financial, legal, or tax advice. Consult your own financial, tax, and estate planning advisors before making any investment decisions. Armstrong may contact you to offer investment advisory services.
As a busy mom, my to-do list is full.
While we can't add more hours to the day, we do have a great resource to help.
Go Red for Women has information to help you and your family live a healthier life.
Visit goredforwomen.org/momlife today.
The Financial Exchange is produced by Money Matters Radio and is hosted by employees of the Armstrong Advisory Group, a registered investment advisor. All opinions expressed are solely those of the hosts, do not reflect the opinions of Armstrong Advisory or anyone else. Investments can lose money. This program does not offer any specific financial or investment advice. Please consult your own financial, tax, and estate planning advisors before making any investment decisions. Armstrong Advisory and the advertisers heard on this program do not endorse each other or their services. Armstrong and Money Matters Radio do not compensate each other for referrals and are not affiliated. This is the Financial Exchange with Chuck Zodda and Marc Fandetti. Your exclusive look at business and financial news affecting your day, your city, your world. Stay informed and up to date about economic and market trends, plus breaking business news every day. The Financial Exchange is a proud partner of the Disabled American Veterans Department of Massachusetts. Help us support our great American heroes by visiting DAV5K.Boston and making a donation today. The DAV 5K Boston is presented by Veterans Development Corporation. This is the Financial Exchange with Chuck Zodda and Marc Fandetti.
Chuck, Mark, and Tucker with you here on a Wednesday. And as we take a look at where markets are, again, kind of this negative drift that ends up turning into nothing by the end of the day the last couple days here, where you take a look at the S&P 500, and it's kind of just treading water within about 1% of its all-time highs. We've had two negative days in a row to start the week, Monday and Tuesday, but both of them at one point were down, 0.5%, almost 1% on Monday, and basically rallied back to, pretty close to flat by the end of the day. We'll see if we end up with a similar story here today. We do have some economic data that came out this morning, most of it related to the housing market. The first piece, the Mortgage Bankers Association publishes a few different indices of mortgage activity. Overall, the mortgage application index down 6.7% week over week. This is an index, by the way, that is really volatile based on rates. So when I say it's down 6.7% in a week, that doesn't mean that the world is ending. You do see big shifts in mortgage volume. Most of that on the refinance side, because refinancing activity in particular is really rate sensitive. The MBA mortgage refinance index down almost 9% for the week, whereas the purchase index down around 4.5%. So overall, what we are seeing, higher interest rates trickling into the mortgage market. And Mark, as we're seeing that, it's being reflected in fewer people either trying to refinance or purchase new homes using mortgages.
Yeah, I guess that's the way it's supposed to work, all else equal.
It is. Where this ends up a couple months later is in something called existing home sales, which measures, as one would expect, the sales of homes that have already been in existence, used homes, if you will. And for the month of September, we saw that existing home sales dropped by about 1% from an annualized pace of 3.88 million down to 3.84 million. So continuing to see the pace of home sales slide. And this is something that dovetails with, again, the mortgage data that we have here. But ultimately is something that is not great for overall economic activity, simply because as you see housing sales slide, there's a ton of economic activity then that doesn't occur as a result of those missed sales. Think about all the money that is unlocked from a house when you sell it. As an example, let's say that you're selling a home for, what's the median home price in the U.S. now? It's like $387,000 and change, somewhere in that ballpark, or is it $400,000? I don't know. Let's call it $400,000 just to make the math easy. Sell a home for $400,000. $20,000 in equity out the door right away, paying the agents. So you get $20,000 that's coming out into the local community. You might pay movers. That might be a couple $1,000s. You might pay for new furniture. That might be a couple $1,000s. You might pay for some painting or renovations. Maybe you decide, hey, we're doing a whole, kitchen. It's, $40,000, $50,000. I don't even know what a kitchen goes for at this point. I think you can probably buy fridges that expensive if you really wanted to. But the point is, moving is something that generates a ton of economic activity. The only single transaction that typically generates more when you are talking about the U.S. economy, aside from like buying a private plane or something, is when you are building that new home to begin with, because then there's all of the labor cost and everything that goes out into the community again, wages and things like that. But housing is a huge engine of economic activity. And so when home sales slow, it's typically a leading indicator of where the economy is going.
Yeah, the knock-on effects are the important ones because residential investment, traditional housing is not a huge part of GDP. It's well under 5% in terms of contribution.
It's just the marginal
number
piece
that we report every quarter. It is all the secondary and higher order. It's not quite the right way to put it, but you know what I mean. Effects. I think you're absolutely right. The economy is very levered to housing, said differently. It doesn't have to be this way. We just are.
It's not an accident, though. I mean, you look at how the tax code is structured with the incentives for construction and mortgages and things like that. Like it's intentional that we've built.
Yeah,
the
ownership the ownership part of it was, and give people an interest in property in their communities that fosters stability. The downside is construction is boom bust. All construction is. So you live by it and you die by it. I don't know what you do about that or if you have to do anything about that.
Now, the cause of rates moving up is not that the Federal Reserve said, hey, we're going to hike interest rates. Remember, the Fed does not directly control long-term interest rates. They control short-term ones. And the reason why we're seeing mortgage rates moving up is because long-term Treasury yields are rising. Over the last 6 weeks now, actually probably, 6 weeks, we've seen the 10-year Treasury go from 3.6% up to 4.25 this morning. So that's, again, almost a 0.7% jump that we've seen in a span of about 6 weeks, and mortgage rates tend to reflect that as well. Mark, we went through this whole thing last year where we had Treasury rates moving up in July, August, and September as well. And the talk at the time was, well, the market's finally pricing in, the fact that the U.S. deficit is going to catch up to us. Mm-hmm. And sure enough, despite adding more debt month over month, year over year, day over day, Treasury rates did come back down. So it clearly wasn't just, hey, there's too much debt out there, because if that were the case, then you would have seen rates continue to rise and not move the other direction. So we've got a piece from Bloomberg here today, and it's titled "Treasuries Plunge Like It's 1995 as Traders See Soft Landing." Basically saying, hey, there's going to be more growth, and so that's why Treasuries are selling off today. It's because of growth.
Well,
ultimately, it's kind of a choose your adventure novel whenever you're looking at any market. Like, there's no one thing that is ultimately driving everything. There are a bunch of competing stories out there, and people publish different ones, and maybe they take hold, maybe they don't. The soft landing one is one of them. The other possibility is, hey, maybe this time people are actually pricing in, the fact that interest on the debt continues to grow, and it has the potential to crowd out other spending and things like that. We don't know, but what we can do is just try to understand, hey, where is this going to go, and where are some reasonable places where things may turn? I think that's a better approach in my mind than trying to come up with, the one narrative to rule them all.
Well, I think the key point is the one you made at the beginning. The Fed doesn't actually control any interest rate. It exerts heavy influence, even on the short end of the curve. It just targets Fed funds. It can't control it. Banks control it. They're the entities that lend to one another overnight, which is what Fed funds is. Fed controls the money supply. That I can say categorically. Only the Treasury can print money at the direction of the Fed. The Fed uses the money supply to exert heavy influence over the short end of the so-called Treasury yield curve, like you said.
Sure.
Chuck, long end moves due to structural factors, worries about deficits, optimism about economic growth, which increases demand for loanable funds. And we can break the recent increase in the 10-year Treasury into the amount that's attributable to the rise in expected inflation and the amount that's real, if you like, or after inflation. And it's roughly 2/3 real, which could be due to structural concerns or optimism about growth, and 1/3 due to expected inflation. But even that's just an approximation. At the end of the day, you really don't know.
When we look at the move that we've seen in Treasuries, and I want to touch on this headline again. It says Treasuries plunge like it's 1995, which may at first glance make people think, oh, is this the biggest move that we've seen since 1995 in Treasuries? And the answer is no. What it is that the 2-year yield has climbed about 0.34% since the Fed started cutting. And that is the largest rise in the 2-year yield during a cutting cycle since 1995. So that is the distinction that they're trying to make here. So when we talk about the magnitude of these moves, a 34 basis point move in the 2-year Treasury over 6 to 8 weeks is not anything to write home about. It's some volatility. I'm not going to say it's nothing, but it's nothing meaningful. Rather, they're saying, hey, normally in cutting cycles, the 2-year doesn't look like it is moving. It doesn't tend to move in this direction. It is here, and the interpretation by this author is, hey, the 2 year's moving up because the economy is going to be able to soft land, and they don't need to cut as much as anticipated. That's the interpretation by this author.
Yeah, they're hoping that it's a repeat of 95, which is really the only universally agreed upon, I'd say, instance of the Fed having engineered a soft landing, raising rates to slow price growth, slow the economy a bit, but not to the point that it caused inflation.
Let's take a quick break here. When we come back, we'll talk about the battle of the investment banks for the prediction that is going to be correct on the S&P 500 for the next 10 years. That's a long way of saying, hey, Goldman thinks there's going to be 3% growth in the stock market annually for the next decade. What does JPMorgan think it's going to do? Well, we'll tell you that when we return.
If you missed any of today's show, catch up whenever you want on our YouTube page. Find daily show segments and full shows. Just go to youtube.com and search for The Financial Exchange. This is your home for breaking business and financial news. This is The Financial Exchange Radio Network. Inventory management is a critical element in a smooth business operation. SAB Solutions Incorporated is your trusted advisor for an easy-to-organize management system that tracks your inventory using automated data collection and digital technology. Mismanaged inventory leads to unfilled orders. Let the experts at SAB Solutions evaluate your business and save you time and money by efficiently coordinating your company's inventory and data. Visit them online at sabsolutionsma.com and schedule your no-cost assessment today. That's sabsolutionsma.com.
The Financial Exchange and Veterans Development Corporation are proud partners of the Disabled American Veterans Department of Massachusetts. The DAV provides thousands of hours of voluntary services at our VA medical centers and is the only DAV department in the country to lead a veterans housing initiative for single veterans and for those with families. These programs are critical to serving our veterans in their time of need. You can help our great American heroes by making a donation today. Please visit davma.org. That's davma.org.
To fully maximize your Social Security benefits, it's important to understand how Social Security may affect your taxes. Hi, this is Mike Armstrong from the Armstrong Advisory Group, and when deciding to collect Social Security benefits, it's essential to consider how those benefits interact with your other income sources, your tax situation, and your long-term financial goals. As an example, if you have tax-free or after-tax options in retirement, you can structure your financial plan to manage your future tax burden. Collecting Social Security too early without careful planning could limit your ability to manage taxes later in life. Our new free guide is called Social Security and Taxes, and it unpacks these issues and more. Get your free copy today by calling 800-393-4001. That's 800-393-4001.
The proceeding was paid for by Armstrong Advisory Group, a registered investment advisor. Nothing in the ad or in any Armstrong guide is specific financial, legal, or tax advice. Consult your own financial, tax, and estate planning advisors before making any investment decisions. Armstrong may contact you to offer investment advisory services. Spouses generally serve as the beneficiary to your IRA or life insurance policy, but naming your estate the beneficiary has quite a few benefits. Cushing & Dolan are experts in elder law, and they can help you protect your assets from probate and the nursing home. By naming your estate as a beneficiary, you can avoid the probate process, lessen the chance of creating any income tax issues on your RMDs, and enjoy enhanced estate tax reduction. Call Cushing & Dolan right now at 866-848-5699 and ask for their brand new guide called Why Name Your Estate an IRA Beneficiary. Learn about these benefits and others and provide peace of mind for you and your family during your retirement years. That number again is 866-848-5699. Or you can request the guide online by visiting our website at LegalExchangeShow.com. That's LegalExchangeShow.com. The proceeding was paid for and the views expressed are solely those of Cushing & Dolan. Cushing & Dolan and or Armstrong Advisory may contact you offering legal or investment services. Cushing & Dolan and Armstrong Advisory do not endorse each other and are not affiliated.
Hey, listen, are you a 50-year-old person looking for term life insurance? Then you need to talk to Bob. Bob specializes in helping people find $1 million or more of term life insurance for a couple of $100 a month. Look, you need to know there's a price war in the term life insurance business, and you may be paying too much. Call Bob, and he'll shop and see how much money he can save you. Look, this could be the last term life insurance policy you ever have. Your rates are guaranteed for the next 20 years. That's right, guaranteed level rates for the next 20 years. And if you're a smoker or your health is not perfect, Bob has great rates for you too. So for $1 million of term life insurance coverage for a couple of $100 a month, call Bob right now. 800-965-7987. 800-965-7987. 800-965-7987. That's 800-965-7987. Paid for by Term Direct.
Text us 617-362-1385 with your comments and questions about today's show. This is the Financial Exchange Radio Network.
This segment of the Financial Exchange is brought to you in part by the U.S. Virgin Islands Department of Tourism. The U.S. Virgin Islands of St. Croix, St. Thomas, and St. John. Now's the time to start looking at a fabulous holiday vacation, and there's no better place than the U.S. Virgin Islands. Enjoy perfect weather, world-class dining, incredible beaches, and a vibrant nightlife. No passport is needed. There's no money to exchange. Take your next vacation in America's Caribbean paradise, the United States Virgin Islands. Go to visitusvi.com to book your trip. That's visitusvi.com.
So it made an awful lot of news earlier this week that Goldman Sachs said, hey, the S&P 500 is going to generate a total return of 3% annually for the next decade. JPMorgan comes out and says, hey, we think the S&P 500 is going to generate an annual total return of 6.7%, not 6.6, not 6.5, not 6.8, but 6.7% over the next 10 years. They're remarkably precise about this, Mark.
You may wonder why they are, and it's not just because they like to drive us crazy. It's because there are investors who have a required rate of return. We all actually do, whether or not you know it, you've got one. Most of us need our money to work for us. So those institutional clients, mainly, like pensions,
sure,
ask them for that. And they push for the one decimal. Economics and finance, they're, at best a one decimal place science. But we get pushed for that, I say we, like some in the profession, by actuaries who require that we give them that. That's why we arrive at what some would call silly or false precision. Just a little background there as to why you get the decimal point.
Other things that we found here, other things that you can read about on this, just in terms of looking at it. I want to go back to the Goldman piece here. Goldman thinks that there is a 72% chance that stocks will underperform bonds over the next 10 years. And the way that you get there is relatively simple. If you are looking at a 10-year horizon, then you're going to compare stocks to the 10-year bond. And the 10-year Treasury right now is yielding what, Mark? 4.25?
4.25 right now, yeah.
So if you go out and you buy a 10-year Treasury right now from the U.S. government, you are locking in a 4.25% rate of return over the next decade, unless the U.S. government decides to default on its debts, which would basically upend the entire financial system as a whole and be rather bad. So
we'd be screwed.
We generally assume that won't happen. Under that assumption, then, hey, if you think stocks are only going to return 3%, the vast majority of that distribution, look, you don't say, hey, they can only return. The distribution's centered around 3. the logical thing is, hey, there's going to be some of that right tail that can exceed a 4.25% return, but they're saying it's not a great chance that you do. That's how the math actually works based on what Goldman's saying. Now, here's one thing that I do know when it comes to these long-term projections. They're generally not great at forward forecasting. No one is in terms of where a specific asset class is going to perform. I remember even hearing, back in 2012, 2013, after stocks had recovered kind of back to where they were before the financial crisis, the thing that you heard is, hey, the next decade is going to be really tough for stocks because, we've had, a term for it. It was like the new normal, sluggish growth. Growth is going to be slow. Stocks are going to struggle to do as well as they have before. And the last decade for stocks has been in like the 75th percentile of historical returns. So a lot of really smart people can be wrong about this stuff. I'm not saying they will be going forward.
Yeah.
And it's also not to say, hey, they might be wrong in the wrong way also. Like there's a chance that returns might be worse than 3%.
I think it's fair to ask your advisor how they arrive at that number. So in this case, you start with the dividend yield, which is what, like 1.5% right now? I'm sorry, I don't have it in front of me.
Yeah, like 1.7.
Okay, so you start with that. You know you're going to get the dividend yield.
Well, you don't know.
Companies
can always cut dividends.
Companies can cut dividends, but say on average that manifests.
Sure.
So you're going to get 1.7. What do you expect on top of that? Will there be any growth? Will company earnings grow, and will some of that get passed along to shareholders?
And historically, the S&P 500 has seen a compound annual growth rate on earnings of around 6.5%. That's the historical trend that we've seen for the last 80, 90 years.
How much of that gets passed through in the form of buybacks and other forms of distributions? This is where the exercise, starts to get tricky. It's very easy to estimate, as you point out, bond returns because the yield to maturity that you see quoted is pretty much what you're going to get, assuming no credit risk. And by the way, we're not even talking about inflation here. Inflation could wipe out the returns on both, as it did in the 70s when bond returns were negative and stocks were barely positive. Inflation can wipe out the returns on both stocks and bonds in terms of your purchasing power. But you start with the dividend yield, and then you have to start making assumptions, each of which, if you've ever had to present this to somebody, your voice starts to get a little shakier as you go through the stages because I'm very confident in the dividend yield. And then we have to make a little assumption about, and my voice gets a little higher and it gets a little shakier about earnings and how much of that gets passed through. It does become a very subjective exercise.
Mark, how does valuation factor into that as well? Right now you're sitting at 22, almost 22 times forward earnings on the S&P 500. How does one go about modeling where multiples are going to be over the next decade?
In my experience, when somebody gets to an estimate they think is a little bit too high, so suppose I add the 7% rounding up on earnings to the 2% rounding up on dividend yields, and I get 9% from stocks. That's my forecast for the next 10 years. That's my capital market assumption, is the fancy way people in investments refer to that. But I feel like that's too high. Like, stocks have been on such a tear. I think it's going to be a little lower over the next 10 years. I don't actually think this, but this is...
This is the process someone goes through.
So I've got another variable I can futz with, and that's the multiple, the valuation multiple. Do I want to assume it stays the same? Or do I want to assume it compresses, as people in finance like to say? So that's the weasel term that I can finagle to make my rate of return estimates be higher, lower, or about the same. And the difference between Goldman and Morgan here is Goldman thinks there's going to be more valuation compression than Morgan does. It's very convenient. If at the end of the day you don't like what you got, you could just twist a little knob on the scale and get to a different number. And it's totally defensible, by the way.
So to put words in your mouth, Goldman are the bigger weasels.
I think Morgan. In this case, I would err with, I'm going to be a weasel here and say I would have done what Goldman did, because that feels more right to me.
Because you can say,
look, it's judgmental at the end of the day.
But you could say historically, we trade at 18x, and so that's
there's going to be some
justification is that, hey, we think we'll normalize valuations rather than remaining elevated.
Yeah, there's going to be compression.
That's how you can
like
weasel
20% valuation. If you ever hear the term valuation compression, that sounds like a physical phenomenon. That's not actually what it means.
Yeah, it's not pleasant to go through.
Stand up, walk it off.
Yeah, you just don't rub it. Like it's just keep moving. Let's take a quick break here. When we come back, we've got Wall Street Watch coming up after this, and then we are joined by Todd Lutsky from Cushing & Dolan for Ask Todd.
Like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter @TFE Show. Breaking business news is always first, right here on the Financial Exchange Radio Network.
Let's talk LDL. AKA bad cholesterol. The higher your LDL cholesterol, the higher your risk of a heart attack or stroke. Your health matters. Know your number. Talk to your doctor and get your cholesterol checked. And learn how to help lower your LDL bad cholesterol. Because your health is in your hands. Find out more at heart.org/LDL.
Congress is poised to pass a bill to keep AM radio in cars. But time is running out. 82 million Americans risk losing the news, sports, talk, traffic, and vital emergency information they rely on. Text AM to 52886 and tell Congress to pass this bill now.
Message and data rates may apply. You may receive up to 4 messages a month, and you may text STOP to STOP.
This message furnished by the National Association of Broadcasters.
Naming your estate the beneficiary of an IRA or life insurance policy can offer significant benefits to your overall planning. Cushing & Dolan's new monthly guide will help you understand why beneficiary designations are a critically important part of your estate plan, especially if you want your assets to be distributed efficiently and protected from probate or the nursing home. They can also reduce the possibility of creating any income tax issues on your required minimum distributions. Call Cushing & Dolan right now at 866-848-5699 and ask for their new guide called Why Name Your Estate an IRA Beneficiary. There's nothing more important than protecting your assets and providing lifelong comfort for your family. Call today at 866-848-5699. That number again is 866-848-5699. Or you can request the guide online at LegalExchangeShow.com. The proceeding was paid for and the views expressed are solely those of Cushing & Dolan. Cushing & Dolan and or Armstrong Advisory may contact you offering legal or investment services. Cushing & Dolan and Armstrong Advisory do not endorse each other and are not affiliated. Fall is in full swing. The leaves are changing, the days are getting shorter, and the cold is inching closer. Don't let the prospect of darkness at 4 p.m. get you down, because your next incredible vacation is just a click away. The U.S. Virgin Islands are St. Croix, St. Thomas, and St. John. Enjoy one or all three and experience rich history, world-class cuisine, a wide variety of water sports, and the most pristine beaches anywhere in the world. Go to visitusvi.com and check out the American Caribbean, where you'll find all the information you need to book a trip you'll never forget. Upon arrival, you'll fall naturally in rhythm with the heartbeat of the islands. Travel to and from New England is simple, and your stay will be hassle-free because this is the American Caribbean. There's no passport required and no money to exchange. Whether it's a romantic getaway or a family vacation, make your plans now to get out of the cold and head to America's Caribbean paradise. Go to visitusvi.com and book your trip of a lifetime today. That's visitusvi.com.
Hi, this is Chuck and Mike from the Armstrong Advisory Group, and we have a guide this month titled Social Security and Taxes. Mike, first question to ask, how is Social Security taxation determined?
Well, it's dependent on all of your total income that you have in retirement when collecting Social Security. And they include the Social Security benefits in that calculation. But, generally speaking, if your only income is coming from Social Security, very little of it, if any, will actually be taxed when you go to file your return. On the other hand, if you have RMDs, maybe you're still working, you have capital gains, then it's possible that up to 85% could be taxed of your Social Security benefit by the federal government.
And in terms of the tax rate that you would pay on that portion that is taxed, how does that work?
Yeah, pretty simply, it's going to knock up against your regular brackets. And so, we have the graduated income tax brackets, and you'll include that in the calculation of your adjusted gross income. Obviously, speak with a tax professional in regard to all of that. But then there's on the state level a bunch of differences too, because some states include Social Security income in taxation, others do not. Some include IRA distributions or pension distributions, others do not in their calculations. And so it gets more granular when you get to the state-to-state level, other than those few states that don't have any income tax.
Our guide this month is titled Social Security and Taxes, and the way to request it is by calling 800-393-4001. There's a whole bunch of this information in there and more that we didn't discuss. Again, this guide is titled Social Security and Taxes, and the number to call to request it is 800-393-4001. 4001.
The proceeding was paid for by Armstrong Advisory Group, a registered investment advisor. Nothing in the ad or in any Armstrong guide is specific financial, legal, or tax advice. Consult your own financial, tax, and estate planning advisors before making any investment decisions. Armstrong may contact you to offer investment advisory services. Time now for Wall Street Watch, a complete look at what's moving markets so far today, right here on the Financial Exchange Radio Network.
Busy day of earnings. Traders are very busy sifting through all the third quarter results, and markets are in negative territory. Right now, the Dow is down by over 0.5% or 238 points. S&P 500 down just over 1/3% or 20 points, and the NASDAQ is down by 102 points or just over 0.5%. Russell 2000 also off by 0.5% as well. 10-year Treasury yield up by 4 basis points at 4.25%, and crude oil is off about 0.5%, trading at $71.44 a barrel. Boeing down by 1% after the struggling plane maker posted its largest quarterly loss since 2020. Free cash flow is also negative $1.95 billion, owing to losses in its commercial, airplanes, and defense segments. Meanwhile, McDonald stock plunging by 5% after the CDC said an E. coli outbreak linked to the fast food giant's quarter-pounder burgers has resulted in the hospitalization of 10 people and 1 death. Sticking with the fast food space, where Starbucks shares are down by about 0.25% after the coffee restaurant chain's new CEO Brian Niccol called for a big overhaul after disclosing steep quarterly setbacks in the biggest markets. The company also suspended its 2025 forecast. Coca-Cola shares up by 0.5% after posting better than expected third quarter results, but did not provide its full 2025 outlook. The Wall Street Journal is reporting that Frontier Airlines is exploring a renewed bid for Spirit Airlines, sending shares in Spirit up by 42%. And after today's closing bell, we'll see anticipated third quarter results from Tesla. I'm Tucker Silva, and that's Wall Street Watch.
This is Ask Todd on the Financial Exchange Radio Network. If you have an existing estate plan or are in the market for one, Todd Lutsky is here to answer your questions and help you plan for later life. Ask Todd is presented by Cushing & Dolan, serving Massachusetts and New England for more than 35 years, helping families with estate and tax planning, Medicaid planning, and probate law. Visit CushingDolan.com. Now, here's Todd Lutsky.
And we're now joined by Todd Lutsky from the law firm of Cushing & Dolan. The segment is called Ask Todd because you get to ask Todd your questions. Estate planning ones only, but if you got anything estate planning related, we got the phone lines open at 888-205-2263. Last week, once again, we did not get through everyone, so please get in line early if you want to make sure that your question gets answered. That number again is 888-205-2263. We do have the phone lines open for you to ask your estate planning questions to Todd. That phone number again is 888-205-2263. Mr. Lutsky, how are you doing today?
I'm doing just good. Just good. How are you doing?
I'm good. We got a little bit of bad news yesterday, though.
You did personally?
Not me personally.
Oh, good.
Old McDonald.
Oh, old McDonald on the farm?
Had to sell his farm.
He did?
Yeah, he had to cover whatever he EIEIOs.
That's right.
It's a real problem for him. Todd, I want to talk to you a little bit about beneficiary designations today. And specifically, you know, when we're talking about how beneficiaries are designated on IRAs, how does that, what are the general recommendations for how to coordinate that with an estate plan in general?
So I think IRAs are your most complicated asset in your estate plan. So, houses, rental properties, your investment portfolio, all of those assets are pretty easy to deal with. When I say easy to deal with, I mean, if I have a trust, whether it's revocable or irrevocable, I'm likely going to suggest some or all of those assets into the trusts. If it's revocable, we're retitling all of those assets to the trust. I want to do that. Mm-hmm. If it's irrevocable, we'll retitle all that you feel comfortable putting into the trust. Very easy across the board. Enter IRA. IRA is a problem because I can't just retitle it now. And so if I try to retitle it to a trust, I'm going to have a big income tax hit because it has to come out of the IRA and be taxed.
Let me stop you on that. Is there any situation in which you would ever say, hey, it does make sense to do that, pull that money out of the IRA and put it into a trust? Is there a scenario where it might not be the norm, but you still say, yeah, I would consider doing that?
I think it would depend entirely on how much the IRA is worth. I mean, if you got like $1 million IRA and you want to put it into an irrevocable trust, first of all, you would never do it with a revocable trust. You don't need to. The only time this becomes an issue is when you want to do nursing home planning. And that's really, again, kind of what the guide's dealing with too, is how can we add nursing home planning protection to an IRA that needs also estate tax planning and income tax issues. So with a revocable trust, you'd never do it. But with an irrevocable trust, could you do it? If they come in and they say, you know, I really want to protect this IRA from the nursing home, I just have to do it. Well, I would say, you know, how big is it? If it's not going to cause a huge income tax hit, I might. What about a Roth? Now, that's an idea. If I've had a Roth kicking around for, let's say, 10 years, and I've earned 10 years worth of income tax-free growth, and there's $500,000 sitting in there, and I say, you know, I really want to protect this from the nursing home. Well, there's an interesting thought. Now I can take it out tax-free. Yes, I will lose further income tax-free growth by putting it in the irrevocable trust. But you know what? I'm cutting my losses. I'm saying, you know what? If I don't do it, it might not be there because all those losses will be taken, or all that money will be taken if I get sick. If I put it there, at least I'm cutting my losses, letting it grow inside the trust and protect it for my family. Hey, that's not a bad idea. So you just got to look at the tax numbers, I think, Chuck, as the way to go on that.
Talking with Todd Lutsky from the law firm of Cushing & Dolan. If you've got a question for Todd, still a little bit of room on the phone lines at 888-205-2263. We're going to take a quick break now, but when we come back, it's right to your questions with Todd. That number again is 888-205-2263. Quick break, then your questions.
Ask Todd with Todd Lutsky every Wednesday at 10:30, only here on the Financial Exchange Radio Network. Fall is in full swing. The leaves are changing, the days are getting shorter, and the cold is inching closer. Don't let the prospect of darkness at 4 p.m. get you down, because your next incredible vacation is just a click away. The U.S. Virgin Islands are St. Croix, St. Thomas, and St. John. Enjoy one or all three and experience rich history, world-class cuisine, a wide variety of water sports, and the most pristine beaches anywhere in the world. Go to visitusvi.com and check out the American Caribbean, where you'll find all the information you need to book a trip you'll never forget. Upon arrival, you'll fall naturally in rhythm with the heartbeat of the islands. Travel to and from New England is simple, and your stay will be hassle-free because this is the American Caribbean. There's no passport required and no money to exchange. Whether it's a romantic getaway or a family vacation, make your plans now to get out of the cold and head to America's Caribbean paradise. Go to visitusvi.com and book your trip of a lifetime today. That's visitusvi.com.
To fully maximize your Social Security benefits, it's important to understand how Social Security may affect your taxes. Hi, this is Mike Armstrong from the Armstrong Advisory Group, and when deciding to collect Social Security benefits, it's essential to consider how those benefits interact with your other income sources, your tax situation, and your long-term financial goals. As an example, if you have tax-free or after-tax options in retirement, you can structure your financial plan to manage your future tax burden. Collecting Social Security too early without careful planning could limit your ability to manage taxes later in life. Our new free guide is called Social Security and Taxes, and it unpacks these issues and more. Get your free copy today by calling 800-393-4001. That's 800-393-4001.
The proceeding was paid for by Armstrong Advisory Group, a registered investment advisor. Nothing in the ad or in any Armstrong guide is specific financial, legal, or tax advice. Consult your own financial, tax, and estate planning advisors before making any investment decisions. Armstrong may contact you to offer investment advisory services. Spouses generally serve as the beneficiary to your IRA or life insurance policy. But naming your estate the beneficiary has quite a few benefits. Cushing & Dolan are experts in elder law, and they can help you protect your assets from probate and the nursing home. By naming your estate as a beneficiary, you can avoid the probate process, lessen the chance of creating any income tax issues on your RMDs, and enjoy enhanced estate tax reduction. Call Cushing & Dolan right now at 866-848-5699 and ask for their brand new guide called Why Name Your Estate an IRA Beneficiary. Learn about these benefits and others and provide peace of mind for you and your family during your retirement years. That number again is 866-848-5699. Or you can request the guide online by visiting our website at LegalExchangeShow.com. That's LegalExchangeShow.com. The proceeding was paid for and the views expressed are solely those of Cushing & Dolan. Cushing & Dolan and or Armstrong Advisory may contact you offering legal or investment services. Cushing & Dolan and Armstrong Advisory do not endorse each other and are not affiliated.
Are you over the age of 50? Want peace of mind and financial security for your family? Here's an important message to you from Senior Care USA. The average funeral now costs over $10,000. That leaves your loved ones the burden of paying your debts and funeral costs. Our plans start as low as $1 per day and will pay your family up to $30,000 to help pay for your funeral and other expenses. There are no medical exams, your rates will never increase, and your plan cannot be canceled regardless of your medical conditions as long as you make your premium payments. Get up to $30,000 in final expense insurance. Call now for free information. Just answer a few simple questions and get approved right over the phone in just a few minutes. Call right now.
Call 800-378-3818. 800-378-3818. 800-378-3818. That's 800-378-3818.
You're listening to Ask Todd with Todd Lutsky on the Financial Exchange Radio Network.
All right, let's get right to your questions with Todd Lutsky here. First up, we've got Bob in Scituate. Bob, what's your question for Todd Lutsky?
Good morning, gentlemen. My parents moved into an independent living facility and paid a deposit, which is 90% refundable upon death or move out.
Mm-hmm.
Subsequently, my mother qualified for Mass Health in the nursing home there. My father passed away in January. We notified Mass Health, but that money moved over to the nursing home, but it was still in escrow. My mother passed away in June, and that money was never in her name, and the beneficiary or on the refund form was their trust. There was no lien by Mass Health, nor was that money in my mother's name, and it won't have to go through probate. Do we have any risk of the state trying to recover that money?
I'm going to say, based on that fact pattern, no. There's Massachusetts, just so we understand how it works with a Medicaid situation. Apparently, Mom got on Medicaid. Mom was on Medicaid before she died, right?
Correct.
Okay. So somehow Dad ended up passing away, whatever, and then Mom gets on Medicaid. She gets on Medicaid because the money sitting in that account somehow wasn't hers. I don't know how Mom got on Medicaid with the money sitting in an account that was really available to her. In other words, all you guys had to do was simply ask for it, right? And that money would have came out. So that's the part that's making me scratch my head, because when you apply for Mass Health, if you're in a nursing home, they want to know all your accounts. Now, I get it. This was not an account in her name, but yet she clearly was someone who could get the money. So somehow we get on Medicaid. Now, the fact that we're on Medicaid and this asset is going to avoid probate, Mass Health can only recover against probate estate. Now, when you file her will and you file her, if you have to go to probate at all, there is a document you got to file showing, they're going to ask you, was she on Mass Health? You have to check a box. And the answer is you got to send notice to the state. And as part of the probate, they then will come looking to say, are there any probate assets? If there are no probate assets, then they cannot recover. So that's the rule. In Mass, they can only recover from the estate, probate estate, not the gross estate. Having the beneficiary listed as the trust, it should go right to that trust, and I think it will avoid probate. But that's the process. Is there ever a chance? You never can say never, but I'm feeling pretty good about it. So, folks, I hope that helps a little. But, when we're talking about, protecting assets from the cost of nursing home care, an IRA is generally a big asset and generally a complicated asset. So learn how you can now do both estate tax planning, protect it from a nursing home, which was something we couldn't do before, without causing an adverse income tax on the required minimum distribution. So a lot of heavy lifting. Can't learn it on the radio. Call and get the guide. Understand how to fit your IRA into your estate plan the right way. 866-848-5699 or legalexchangeshow.com. Again, 866-848-5699 or legalexchangeshow.com.
Todd, I've got another caller for you here. Let's go to Joey in Worcester. Joey, what is your question for Todd?
Hi, good morning, Todd. I'm attempting to put a rental property into a revocable trust, but the lender says that I need to refinance the property in order to do this. I don't know if that's accurate, and if so, what recourse do I have?
Well, I can tell you that if it's a revocable trust, right, not irrevocable, correct?
Yes, correct.
So I think you need to go to someone higher up in that bank and say, look, I don't have to refinance anything because it's a revocable trust, and transferring my property, encumbered property, to a revocable trust does not trigger a due on sale clause. Remember, mortgages have due on sale clauses or a due on transfer clause. So transferring the property to a revocable trust does not trigger the due on sale clause. So they can't call the note. So I'm not even sure why we're telling the bank, just do it, right? Because I know it can't call the note. In fact, there's a banking law called the Garn-St. Germain Act that actually explains this, that they cannot call a note when it goes into a revocable trust because you're still really considered the owner. Now, Medicaid irrevocable trusts, we got to be a little more careful, right? And that's why we usually reserve a life estate when we do that, to prevent a calling of the note. But here, I'm not sure why you're even having this discussion with them. I feel like you can just go transfer it. Rental property or not. Now, if it was going into an LLC, that's different. If you're going to transfer this property into a limited liability company because it's a rental property, then I'm going to tell you, you're going to have to get bank permission before you transfer it. Otherwise, they could call the note if they find out. So that's my comment. Hope that helps a little, and we can take it from there.
Todd, earlier we were talking a little bit about IRAs and beneficiaries and trying to figure out what to do with them in order to coordinate with an estate plan. What other options are there out there for someone who might have a sizable IRA, might be worried about long-term care costs and things like that? Like, how does one approach that if you can't simply say, hey, I'm going to pull this out, pay all this tax, and move into the irrevocable trust? What does one do?
Right. I think the best approach you're going to have there is, what this guide is saying is to, if you're married and you want to set up a testamentary trust, which is a trust built into your will. That's the best way to say it. It's a fancy tax term. But you set up a testamentary trust, which is a trust built into your will, and then you name the estate as the beneficiary. Now, remember, you're normally hearing this. You're saying my IRA should be my spouse as the primary, my kids as the alternate or the contingent beneficiaries. Very common, very normal. Not so normal is naming the estate. Now, if I name the estate as the beneficiary, and again, it's the estate of the participant of the IRA. So if I name the estate the beneficiary, Now what have I done with the testamentary trust? I still haven't protected either husband or wife's IRA from the nursing home by doing that. Please understand that. While they're both living, we haven't actually protected anything in advance from a nursing home. But Todd, you were saying there's a way to do this in advance. There is. By setting it up this way, you are now giving yourself a 50% shot of protecting the asset in advance from a nursing home, and before there was never a shot. So now, how does it work? If you've named the estate the beneficiary and that participant dies and the surviving spouse is not the beneficiary, so the money flows through probate, yeah, I know, one negative, not enough to not do it. Now it's sitting in this testamentary trust for the benefit of the surviving spouse. Surviving spouse now has access to both income and principal of this money. Good. We're taking care of the spouse. We want to do that. But now the surviving spouse, if gets sick, which could happen within 6 months, it could happen the next day. Doesn't matter when it happens. It's immediately protected from the nursing home. So did I do any advanced protection of an IRA from a nursing home? Yes. But in order to get there, I need one of the spouses to pass away without going to a nursing home, which is everybody's hope anyway. So to me, there's no downside really to trying this. Well, I say there's no downside, but you really got to read the guide and understand how that works, because there's a lot of boxes to check when you make this decision.
Mr. Lutsky, thank you so much for joining us today.
Always a pleasure.
This has been Ask Todd on the Financial Exchange Radio Network. Ask Todd with Todd Lutsky has been presented by Cushing & Dolan, serving Massachusetts and New England for more than 30 years, helping families with estate and tax planning, Medicaid planning, and probate law. Call 800-393-4001 or visit CushingDolan.com. The views expressed in this segment are solely those of Cushing & Dolan. Armstrong Advisory does not provide any legal or tax advice. Please consult with your legal or tax advisor on such matters. Cushing & Armstrong do not endorse each other and are not affiliated.
Still a lot more to come as we continue towards the second hour of the show. We'll talk a little bit about Boeing's earnings and their future. Also, a little bit about what is going on with this E. coli outbreak at McDonald's and how it's affecting their stock. Sticking with food, Starbucks, they are, they're not in a great spot. We know that, but we'll talk about how they're trying to turn the ship around there. And then also, we'll talk a little bit about what we're seeing in gas prices continuing to slide as we head through the fall. All that and more is coming up on Hour 2 of the Financial Exchange.
Cardiovascular disease is the #1 killer of women,
taking the lives of 1 in 3.
That's more than all forms of cancer combined.
For too long, heart disease and stroke have taken the lives of the women we love.
But we're not giving up, because we have something better,
stronger, more powerful.
We have each other.
When we come together and go red,
the more power we have against our greatest health threat.
Visit GoRedForWomen.org today to learn more.
Are you retired like me and you just found out you owe the IRS a ton of money? Well, what would your life be like if they took your retirement savings away from you? They can do it, and your property. If you owe the IRS back taxes or you haven't filed in a while, the Tax Relief Line is here to help you. They can stop the IRS from taking your retirement savings. If you qualify, you could have your tax bill reduced to zero. That's right. If you're retired and you owe the IRS a lot in back taxes, you could have your entire tax bill reduced to zero due. The IRS has now hired thousands of new employees, so they're ready to come after you. Don't let them take your retirement savings or property. Make this free call now.
800-251-2153. 800-251-2153. 800-251-2153. That's 800-251-2153.
Every single day, more than 2,000 U.S. companies face a cyber threat or attack. The Boston Red Sox in Fenway Park chose Centripetal as their official cyber network security partner to ensure the protection of their network and ballpark. Intelligence is the answer to protecting your network, and Centripetal is the global leader of intelligence-powered cybersecurity. The choice is yours. Are you going to be another one of those attacked companies? Or are you ready to experience a radical new cybersecurity solution? Find out why the Red Sox chose Centripetal at www.centripetal.ai.
The Financial Exchange and Veterans Development Corporation are proud partners of the Disabled American Veterans Department of Massachusetts. The DAV provides thousands of hours of voluntary services at our VA medical centers and is the only DAV department in the country to lead a veterans housing initiative for single veterans and for those with families. These programs are critical to serving our veterans in their time of need. You can help our great American heroes by making a donation today. Please visit davma.org. That's davma.org.
This is the Money Matters Radio Network, WBNW 1120 AM and W275 CM FM, Concord, Boston. The Money Matters Radio Network.
This is Tucker Silva of the Financial Exchange Show, and I'm joined today by estate planning attorney Todd Lutsky, a partner with the law firm of Cushing & Dolan with a master's in taxation. And today we're talking about choosing beneficiaries for your IRA. Todd, what is the best way to set up designated beneficiaries for qualified plan assets from both a Medicaid and estate tax planning perspective for a married couple?
Generally, for a married couple, you have several choices. The most commonly used one is you're going to make the surviving spouse the designated beneficiary. It doesn't shelter assets from estate taxes. It just passes to the surviving spouse. It avoids probate, and it's probably the best way to go from an income tax perspective, not necessarily an estate tax perspective. Another way would be you could technically name the trust the beneficiary of the IRA when you pass. That at least will help it shelter assets for estate tax purposes and still provide for the surviving spouse. But from a Medicaid perspective, it will then protect it from the nursing home, but it'll take 5 years. Perhaps the newest and best way to do this would be to name the estate the beneficiary, provided you are over age 73 or over. That way, it goes through probate into the will. It is sheltered for estate taxes. It is immediately protected from the cost of long-term care for the surviving spouse, and the surviving spouse has access to it as well.
Educate yourself about the estate planning process. Request your free copy of Todd's brand new guide, Why Name Your Estate an IRA Beneficiary, right now by calling 866-848-5699. That's 866-848-5699. Or you can request a copy from their website, legalexchangeshow.com.
The proceeding was paid for, and the views expressed are solely those of Cushing & Dolan. Cushing & Dolan and/or Armstrong Advisory may contact you offering legal or investment services. Cushing and Armstrong do not endorse each other and are not affiliated. Fall is in full swing. The leaves are changing, the days are getting shorter, and the cold is inching closer. Don't let the prospect of darkness at 4 p.m. get you down, because your next incredible vacation is just a click away. The U.S. Virgin Islands are St. Croix, St. Thomas, and St. John. Enjoy one or all three and experience rich history, world-class cuisine, a wide variety of water sports, and the most pristine beaches anywhere in the world. Go to visitusvi.com and check out the American Caribbean, where you'll find all the information you need to book a trip you'll never forget. Upon arrival, you'll fall naturally in rhythm with the heartbeat of the islands. Travel to and from New England is simple, and your stay will be hassle-free because this is the American Caribbean. There's no passport required and no money to exchange. Whether it's a romantic getaway or a family vacation, make your plans now to get out of the cold and head to America's Caribbean paradise. Go to visitusvi.com and book your trip of a lifetime today. That's visitusvi.com.
Here at the Massachusetts Department of Elementary and Secondary Education, we are committed to all students not only attending, but succeeding at school. Your presence is powerful. Share why you attend at doe.mass.edu.
Sponsored by the Massachusetts Department of Elementary and Secondary Education.
Environmental nonprofit Ocean River Institute is working with communities to tackle climate change with nature-based solutions that feature slowing water down and building more soil with grasses and plants. Research indicates that people acting in their own neighborhoods can build an inch of soil in a year and slow sea level rise down by as much as 25%. Please visit oceanriver.org for more information on opportunities to make a difference and go the distance for savvy stewardship of a greener and bluer planet Earth.
Last year, we introduced you to Marc Vaughter, CEO of Veterans Development Corporation. Marc is a career military man, and we're proud to have him back as the presenting sponsor of the 2024 DAV 5K Boston.
I'm a proud member of a military family, including my father, Victor, and my brother, Timmy. Serving my country was one of the greatest achievements of my life, and it's why I choose to give back to this special community. My father built Veterans Development Corporation, and I am honored to continue his legacy of working to help many disabled veterans and their families. It also gives me great pleasure to once again be the presenting sponsor of this year's DAV 5K Boston. I hope that by sharing my story, many other disabled veterans will be able to reach their goals once they conclude their service.
Veterans Development Corporation is proud to be the presenting sponsor of this year's DAV 5K, taking place on Saturday, November 9th at Fort Independence in South Boston. To register for this year's race, visit dav5k.boston.
As a busy mom to 4 kids, my to-do list is full.
Trying to fit in exercise, eating right, and prioritizing self-care can feel next to impossible.
While we can't add more hours to the day, we do have a great resource to help.
Go Red for Women has easy tips, tools, and information to help you and your family live a healthier life.
So to all the moms, the aunts, grandmothers, and amazing women out there doing it all,
visit goredforwomen.org/momlife today.
You take care of them, Go Red for Women will take care of you.
The Financial Exchange is produced by Money Matters Radio and is hosted by employees of the Armstrong Advisory Group, a registered investment advisor. All opinions expressed are solely those of the hosts, do not reflect the opinions of Armstrong Advisory or anyone else. Investments can lose money. This program does not offer any specific financial or investment advice. Please consult your own financial, tax, and estate planning advisors before making any investment decisions. Armstrong Advisory and the advertisers heard on this program do not endorse each other or their services. Armstrong and Money Matters Radio do not compensate each other for referrals and are not affiliated. This is the Financial Exchange with Chuck Zodda and Marc Fandetti. Your exclusive look at business and financial news affecting your day, your city, your world. Stay informed and up to date about economic and market trends, plus breaking business news every day. The Financial Exchange is a proud partner of the Disabled American Veterans Department of Massachusetts. Help us support our great American heroes by visiting dav5k.boston and making a donation today. The DAV 5K Boston is presented by Veterans Development Corporation. This is the Financial Exchange with Chuck Zodda and Marc Fandetti.
Kicking off the second hour of the Financial Exchange, markets find themselves in a similar situation to the last couple days midway through the morning. The Dow is down 284 points. The S&P is off 28. The NASDAQ off 126. So we'll see if the market can mount, similar rallies to the last couple days where, look, we've seen these morning sell-offs that have dissipated as we've headed into the afternoon. I have no idea if it will or won't, but that's been the pattern the last couple days is, modest morning sell-offs that are gone by the time you get to the afternoon. I mean, the S&P was down 2 points yesterday when it was all said and done. And we'll see if we get to a similar place today. 10-year Treasury in a similar place, selling off now up to 4.248%, up 4.2 basis points. We've got oil down 95 cents a barrel to $70.79 on West Texas Intermediate. Gas prices nationally continuing to fall. We've broken free of that 320 range, and now the national average, according to AAA, stands at 315 and 0.5 cents, down another 0.8 cents overnight. And we've got gold today reversing its recent strength, down 25.40 an ounce to 27.34 and 40 cents. Mark, let's talk a little bit about Boeing. Boeing, at one point, was the crown jewel of the aviation industry, probably through the 1990s, you would say. Really, even the early 2000s after the McDonald-Douglas merger, but it's, kind of a mess right now, to put it mildly. They ended up reporting a $6.17 billion quarterly loss, which not entirely unexpected. I mean, the company literally can't build some of its airplanes right now because its machinist union is on strike. And they're also trying to revamp operations, streamline things to improve the financial footing, and, oh, by the way, just make the planes at a higher level of quality so they're not having so many issues once they actually get into service. But this is a company that needs some kind of turnaround here, because on the commercial passenger side of things, there really are two options that exist in the world right now, Boeing and Airbus, and the lack of, any competition in that space, were Boeing commercial airplanes, if they were to cease to exist, would be a real problem in the commercial airspace field.
And one of the issues with duopoly, two suppliers, thus duopoly, as opposed to like monopoly, one, just a little economics background there, I guess. One of the issues is that quality can suffer. They both become entrenched. They both become like sclerotic, complacent. And to me, I'm not an expert, obviously, on Boeing. Far from it. You guys know way more about individual companies than I do. But to me, the question is how deep is the rot? What will be the catalyst? Are they really worried in an existential sense, or is Boeing too big to fail because 50% of their revenues come from defense contracts, and we rely on them for vital systems and the planes that refuel our jet fighters and stuff we can't do what we do in this country securely without Boeing.
The defense side is certainly not too big to fail, but too systematically important to fail.
So you've got, to me, the lesson is both major political parties are contemplating protecting more American businesses and building more stuff here. The high-level lesson, not that you all don't know this, is competition's good. Duopolies, monopolies, entrenched positions protected by either lots of government contracts or outright regulations, and Boeing has been one of the biggest it's I think our biggest exporter. Also the biggest beneficiary of tariffs and what I'll just call indirect subsidies that come from government contracts. The result there has not been great for quality. So keep that in mind as you cheer on onshoring, as you cheer on buying everything American exclusively. Those of you who drove cars made in the 80s and the 70s know what I'm talking about. Not a good situation. So there's a cautionary tale, I think, here that goes beyond Boeing. And that tale is probably competition is good, even when it's foreign competition, and it comes at the expense of American businesses in the short term.
When we talk about that competition, one of the things that's so challenging is that there's basically no path to being a startup commercial plane maker today. But the amount of money that you have to spend before you even have a chance of making a dime in revenue is astronomical. You're talking tens, if not hundreds of billions of dollars, because the way it sets up right now, it's basically a 15-year process from start to finish to actually get a commercial airliner into service, like a new one, a brand new model. So there's really no clear path to any kind of legitimate competition for Boeing's commercial airplanes domestically, really, or basically anywhere else. The only place that's trying to actually have a startup in the commercial airliner space is China, and they've been trying to get the C919 off the ground for the last 2 decades. I think they've made and sold literally 16 of them at this point, just because it's such a long process. They can't get certified in the EU. They can't get certified in the US, so it's just a mess. But I have an interesting thought on Boeing, which is, and again, it's probably just a horrible thought, but sometimes these thoughts come up, and I have to say them in front of lots of people, because then I get told, no, that's a bad idea, and I'm like, okay, fine, maybe it is. But let's say that Boeing can't get themselves out of this slump that they're in, and let's say they have these existential, problems of, hey, how do we stay in business? The U.S. government is not going to let Boeing fail, as you noted, because of the Defense Department business. It's kind of important to be able to make F-18s. To just make it simple. You have to be able to make them. When we look at what I would do, I think that you could maybe kill a few birds with one stone in that, okay, Boeing is, considering declaring bankruptcy. What do? split the company up first and foremost. The defense business gets split off from the commercial business because you don't want to be bailing out Boeing Defense for the sins of the commercial in perpetuity. So split that off. That way that can continue to exist on its own. Toss it a few $1 billion to make sure that you can still, operate and make all the stuff that you need. Fine. That goes its own way. The remaining commercial business. Well, if you can't get any startups to actually, meaningfully enter the space, what if you split up Boeing's commercial business based on the products that it makes in its different factories? As an example, the Dreamliner they make exclusively in South Carolina. Fine, now you've got Dreamliner Aviation. And then all the stuff that's left in Washington State, fine, that can keep the Boeing name or something along those lines. Something where you try to generate additional, competition through whatever the end remedy is. Because otherwise you might just be back here in 10 years with one national champion firm, and that's not good or sustainable.
Part of the issue to me is, what is the problem? Has anybody defined it? What's the problem with Boeing? Other than the obvious effects that we read about every day, those are symptoms. What's the underlying problem? Is it culture? That's what the new CEO has cited. And how does that fix the underlying problem?
From the people that have looked at this extensively, and by extensively I mean more than just me reading a bunch and watching documentaries, but like people who've actually talked to engineers.
Experts.
Actual experts.
Yeah.
After the McDonald-Douglas merger, the MD people came in and basically took the reins, and they are bean counters, not engineers.
Okay.
And as such, the quality that Boeing was known for before the merger has been on a multi-decade slide to the point where it's gotten to where it is today. And you need to put the engineers in charge of the thing again and get the bean counters back to counting beans.
So whatever the solution is, whether it's splitting up the company or changing the culture as their new CEO continues to underscore, it's got to address the right problem. And the problem is culture is difficult to define. And I just, absent a specific problem, I don't know that anybody can prescribe a solution. And these are smart people. They're not stupid. They've had McKinsey in there. They've had other consultants in there. They're not subject matter
That makes me feel good.
Yeah, I know they're not. I mean, we know these are smart guys. They get MBAs from good schools.
The reason you bring in a consulting firm, though, is just to give you cover for whatever you're going to do anyways.
Some C-suite people do it for that reason. It's easier to, say this is backed by a gold-plated consulting firm. Adds additional authority, I guess, and credibility. But again, unless you identify the problem and you're very specific about it, these slapdash quote solutions are unlikely to be fruitful.
Let's take a quick break here. When we return, we've got some trivia, and then we'll talk about, two areas where we've been seeing some improvements in cost recently, rent and airfares. Are those areas starting to reverse and maybe prices start going back up? We'll talk about that when we return.
Breaking business and financial news first throughout the day. Only here on the Financial Exchange Radio Network. The following is an important message from SAB Solutions Incorporated, your trusted advisor for companies needing inventory management. Visit them online at sabsolutionsma.com.
I'm Colleen Sullivan with SAB Solutions. Is your warehouse inventory inaccurate? Do you have concerns about manual operations? If so, then SAB Solutions can help. We are experts in inventory management and warehouse operation systems, and with our data-driven solution, we can improve your company's efficiency while saving you time and money. We can streamline the management process, making it easy for you to identify slow-moving or obsolete items while maintaining your focus on customer satisfaction and stock levels. SAB Solutions provides real-time data on inventory levels using digital technology, and we've been a trusted advisor to numerous companies for over 15 years. Now, through the end of October, we're offering a no-cost assessment. You can schedule yours today by visiting us online at sabsolutionsma.com. That's SAB, B as in business, solutionsma.com.
As a busy mom to 4 kids, my to-do list is full.
Trying to fit in exercise, eating right, and prioritizing self-care can feel next to impossible.
While we can't add more hours to the day, we do have a great resource to help.
Go Red for Women has easy tips, tools, and information to help you and your family live a healthier life.
So to all the moms, the aunts, grandmothers, and amazing women out there doing it all,
visit goredforwomen.org/momlife today.
You take care of them, Go Red for Women will take care of you.
The ultimate Boston sports auction to benefit the Disabled American Veterans Department of Massachusetts is coming. Your chance to see the world champion Celtics, the Bruins, the Red Sox, and the Patriots, plus autographed merch from Pedro Martinez, Kristaps Porzingis, Brandon Carlo, and much more. One massive auction, 4 incredible experiences, and all to benefit the Disabled American Veterans Department of Massachusetts. The auction begins on November 4th at 11 a.m. only here on Money Matters Radio AM 1120 and FM 102.9 WBNW.
Last year, we introduced you to Marc Fandetti, CEO of Veterans Development Corporation. Marc is a career military man, and we're proud to have him back as the presenting sponsor of the 2024 DAV 5K Boston.
I'm a proud member of a military family, including my father Victor and my brother Timmy. Serving my country was one of the greatest achievements of my life, and it's why I choose to give back to this special community. My father built Veterans Development Corporation, and I am honored to continue his legacy of working to help many disabled veterans and their families. It also gives me great pleasure to once again be the presenting sponsor of this year's DAV 5K Boston. I hope that by sharing my story, many other disabled veterans will be able to reach their goals once they conclude their service.
Veterans Development Corporation is proud to be the presenting sponsor of this year's DAV 5K, taking place on Saturday, November 9th at Fort Independence in South Boston. To register for this year's race, visit dav5k.boston.
Spouses generally serve as the beneficiary to your IRA or life insurance policy. But naming your estate the beneficiary has quite a few benefits. Cushing & Dolan are experts in elder law, and they can help you protect your assets from probate and the nursing home. By naming your estate as a beneficiary, you can avoid the probate process, lessen the chance of creating any income tax issues on your RMDs, and enjoy enhanced estate tax reduction. Call Cushing & Dolan right now at 866-848-5699 and ask for their brand new guide called Why Name Your Estate an IRA Beneficiary. Learn about these benefits and others and provide peace of mind for you and your family during your retirement years. That number again is 866-848-5699. Or you can request the guide online by visiting our website at LegalExchangeShow.com. That's LegalExchangeShow.com. The proceeding was paid for and the views expressed are solely those of Cushing & Dolan. Cushing & Dolan and or Armstrong Advisory may contact you offering legal or investment services. Cushing & Dolan and Armstrong Advisory do not endorse each other and are not affiliated. The Financial Exchange streams live on YouTube. Like our page and stay up to date on breaking business news all morning long. This is the Financial Exchange Radio Network.
Trivia brought to you by Applebee's. Take your friends or family to any area Applebee's and enjoy half-price late-night appetizers after 9 p.m., including boneless wings, spinach and artichoke dip, and warm pretzels dipped in beer cheese. And don't forget to join Club Applebee's to enjoy exclusive deals and specials. You'll get a free appetizer just for signing up. Now, that's eating good in the neighborhood. Avoid where prohibited. Dine in only. Well, in the 1985 hit movie The Goonies, Chunk comes face-to-face with the disfigured sloth to try to assuage the giant. Chunk offers Sloth a bite of his candy bar, and the two quickly became friends. Trivia question today. What kind of candy bar did Chunk give to Sloth? Once again, what kind of candy bar did Chunk give to Sloth? I don't know what any of that means because I have not seen that movie. Too weird. Be the 8th person today to text us at 617-362-1385 with the correct answer. You win a Financial Exchange Show t-shirt and be registered to win a $100 gift card to Applebee's. Be sure to include the keyword Applebee's in your text, and we'll give away that Applebee's gift card on Friday's show. 617-362-1385, and the 8th correct response will be our winner. See complete contest rules at financialexchangeshow.com.
All right, let's talk a little bit about this piece from Bloomberg Opinion. It's titled Say Goodbye to Cheaper Rent and Airfares. And the premise of this is pretty straightforward, which is, look, for the last few months we've been hearing about airlines having this glut of seats now. It's put pressure on airfares heading into the holiday season. And so what do airlines do in this case? They say, okay, we're going to start, reducing the number of available seats. So they're starting to do that. On the rent side of things, there was a huge boom in multifamily construction during 2021 and 2022. Low interest rates and high cost of purchasing a home led to a ton of demand for rentals. And so you saw just, again, rentals popping up left and right, especially in the Southeast, where you had these huge multifamily developments going on. As interest rates rose in 2023, you end up in a situation where, really actually late 22 and early 23, you end up in a situation where, hey, it no longer is cost competitive for someone to go and build, 400 units of housing in the Southeast. And so they say, great, we're not going to build any more multifamily. And so the pipeline for multifamily construction has kind of dried up. And so you've got a lower number of new units coming on over the next couple of years once you get through kind of the next quarter or two. Your thoughts, Mark?
Yes, supply will catch up with excess in any market. Supply catches up with excess demand. At first, there's a squeeze. And we saw that in both these markets early in the early stages of the exit from the COVID recession. And that pushes up prices. It contributed to overall inflation as well. Supply eventually increases to fill that gap. In the short term, though, supply is fixed, as we all learn, but sometimes forget. That pushes up prices. Then supply responds. That takes a little while, though. Demand inevitably can't keep up at a breakneck pace forever, and therefore prices come down, which in turn spurs demand, and the cycle repeats. I'm oversimplifying a little bit, but that's why you get mini boom-bust-like behavior in some industries and acute boom-bust behavior in others. It all depends on the relative responsiveness of supply and demand.
Do you guys remember all the time that we spent covering used vehicle prices back in 2021 and 22? The Manheim used vehicle value index.
The media certainly clung to that, yeah.
I mean, it was a big
news,
thing.
yeah.
We've never seen anything like that before. I mean, used cars, so their prices rise 40% year over year from 2020 to 2021.
Yeah, just look at the...
we joked about, hey, look, the best performing, asset class in 2022 was used vehicles because they were up 10%. I mean...
Is that an actual investable asset class? Were people trying to securitize it?
I was making a joke.
Oh, okay. I wouldn't be surprised, though, if somebody did try to securiitize.
Oh, well, people try to securitize everything. I mean, my whole belief about finance is there's only two tricks, and it's just repackaging them. It's securitization and leverage, and just what can we...
There's only debt and equity at a high level,
What can we securitize, and then how do we leverage it once it's securitized? In 2007, it was, hey, we've securitized leverage, and that went very badly for us, and then levered it again. It's not quite ideal when
back Manheim and I'm sorry, I took you off track.
No, I was just talking about how, look, airfares and stuff like that, sure, they might go through these, you refer to them as these mini boom bust cycles. We've seen one in again in car prices a couple of years ago, and those have leveled off on the used vehicle side at least now. There's been basically no movement for the last 12 months now in used car prices. We've kind of found that the happy medium based on where the economy is today. So I look at this and, yeah, you might have certain things that end up becoming more expensive, but ultimately, when we talk about the impact on inflation, remember, inflation is not the change in one price. It's the change in the aggregate price level. And so if rent and airfares start going up in price, there are a couple of things that can happen. Either A, people say, yeah, I'm willing to pay those prices, but now it takes away from my spending elsewhere, so something else has to see its price come down because people can't afford to do that. Or people might say, you know what, airfares are too expensive, not going to go that route anymore, we'll drive instead of flying, and you end up with airfares having to, correct and come back down because the demand still isn't there at the prices that airlines want to charge. So there's... Again, it's a dynamic system. It's not something where you just say, well, now they're gonna get us forever on airfares. Well, no, prices and preferences are always in flux and always changing. They're never stuck forever. It's just, hey, here's the latest adjustment that companies are making based on what they're seeing in terms of overall consumer demand, and consumers then may adjust their preferences based on these new prices coming in from companies.
Yeah, broad inflation statistics, getting to the second article of two in this theme, is that where you were going, or am I just jumping ahead? They're not really meant to capture my experience or yours. They were most of the statistics that we use, and statistic means, loosely speaking, estimate. We don't just use that as a fancy way of saying number. When you hear statistic, you should think, oh, errors. Oh, this is a sample. It's not.
Sure.
It's probably not accurate, and it's certainly not representative of my experience. We use these things, is the broad point I want to make here. whether it's GDP, this, or unemployment. We use these things in a way they weren't really developed to be used.
And also, like, it gets kind of nitpicky. Like, this piece is talking about, hey, tipping isn't factored into the CPI. Is that well, tipping's never been in the CPI. Like, let's not make this a problem that doesn't exist.
Yeah. Well, that's why when you look at something like that, you got to smooth it by taking a long-term moving average or use something like the median. What policymakers are interested in is the trend, which is why we talk about median and core and other ways of getting at it. Because, again, the CPI is not supposed to be representative of any one individual or even group of individuals' experience. That's not what it was built for.
Like other things, they're like, hey, these other things didn't make it into the CPI either. Illegal activity, like getting a ticket for driving too fast. Marijuana use. I mean,
those guys didn't notice.
Sorry, it's fine. Quick break here. More coming up after this.
Bringing the latest financial news straight to your radio every day. It's the Financial Exchange on the Financial Exchange Radio Network.
Heads up, athletes, coaches, and parents. Play for life, not just points. Hypertrophic cardiomyopathy, or HCM, is the leading cause of sudden cardiac death, especially in black athletes in sports like football or basketball. If you feel shortness of breath, chest pain, and fatigue, or have a family history of HCM, talk to your doctor. Don't let HCM bench you for good. Learn how to stay in the game at heart.org/HCM student athlete. Your heart, your health, your move.
Let's talk LDL. AKA bad cholesterol. The higher your LDL cholesterol, the higher your risk of a heart attack or stroke. Your health matters. Know your number. Talk to your doctor and get your cholesterol checked. And learn how to help lower your LDL bad cholesterol. Because your health is in your hands. Find out more at heart.org/LDL.
Fall is in full swing. The leaves are changing, the days are getting shorter, and the cold is inching closer. Don't let the prospect of darkness at 4 p.m. get you down, because your next incredible vacation is just a click away. The U.S. Virgin Islands are St. Croix, St. Thomas, and St. John. Enjoy one or all three and experience rich history, world-class cuisine, a wide variety of water sports, and the most pristine beaches anywhere in the world. Go to visitusvi.com and check out the American Caribbean, where you'll find all the information you need to book a trip you'll never forget. Upon arrival, you'll fall naturally in rhythm with the heartbeat of the islands. Travel to and from New England is simple, and your stay will be hassle-free because this is the American Caribbean. There's no passport required and no money to exchange. Whether it's a romantic getaway or a family vacation, make your plans now to get out of the cold and head to America's Caribbean paradise. Go to visitusvi.com and book your trip of a lifetime today. That's visitusvi.com.
Hi, it's Chuck and Mike from the Armstrong Advisory Group, and we have a guide available this month titled Social Security and Taxes. Mike, when we talk about incorporating a Social Security strategy into a financial plan, what are some of the considerations?
Well, the consideration that everyone likes to focus on, and for good reason, is, hey, how do I maximize my benefits over my lifetime? If I live to a certain age, when's the best time for me to claim Social Security? Because obviously you have a wide range. You can start as early as 62, as late as age 70, and depending on how long you live, there's a calculation to figure out what would be the most benefits you would receive over your lifetime. But I would argue that for most folks, that's probably not the most important consideration to be making.
What is the most important one?
So I would be focusing on the impact of certain items to the success of your financial plan. So for example, if you look at your plan and say, wow, if I face a lot of inflation in retirement, maybe just because prices in general go up more than I anticipate, then delaying Social Security in order to get a larger base on which COLA is adjusted could be a really positive impact to your plan. On the other hand, if you have a shorter than normal life expectancy or a longer than normal life expectancy, both of those come into play as well when figuring out the appropriate time to claim that Social Security benefit.
Our guide this month is titled Social Security and Taxes, and the number to call to request it is 800-393-4001. Again, the guide that's available this month is called Social Security and Taxes, and the number to call to request it is 800-393-4001.
The proceeding was paid for by Armstrong Advisory Group, a registered investment advisor. Nothing in the ad or in any Armstrong guide is specific financial, legal, or tax advice. Consult your own financial, tax, and estate planning advisors before making any investment decisions. Armstrong may contact you to offer investment advisory services.
Are you retired like me and you just found out you owe the IRS a ton of money? Well, what would your life be like if they took your retirement savings away from you? They can do it and your property. If you owe the IRS back taxes or you haven't filed in a while, the tax relief line is here to help you. They can stop the IRS from taking your retirement savings. If you qualify, you could have your tax bill reduced to zero. That's right. If you're retired and you owe the IRS a lot in back taxes, you could have your entire tax bill reduced to zero due. The IRS has now hired thousands of new employees, so they're ready to come after you. Don't let them take your retirement savings or property. Make this free call now.
800-251-2153. 800-251-2153. 800-251-2153. That's 800-251-2153.
Text us at 617-362-1385 with your comments and questions about today's show, and let us know what you think about the stories we are covering. This is the Financial Exchange Radio Network.
All right, trivia question today was, what kind of candy bar did Chunk give to Sloth in the Goonies? That would be a Baby Ruth. Thank goodness for Chunk's quick thinking and offering Sloth the Baby Ruth candy bar. That decision by Chunk ends up saving the lives of the entire group of the Goonies, and I'll never have to see that movie again. Or ever, actually. Chris from Granby, Connecticut is our winner today. Granby, Connecticut, is our winner today. Taking home a Financial Exchange Show t-shirt, and is also registered to win a $100 gift card to Applebee's, which we'll give away on Friday's show. And trivia is brought to you by Applebee's. Enjoy half-price late-night appetizers after 9 p.m. and join Club Applebee's to enjoy exclusive deals and specials. You'll get a free appetizer just for signing up. Now that's eating good in the neighborhood. Void where prohibited. Dine-in only.
I don't issue apologies often, but I have to issue one here. I've generally said that if you have an E. coli outbreak, it's almost certainly caused by romaine lettuce, because that just seems to be the culprit more often than not. As such, I believe that romaine lettuce is just, why would I bother? Is kind of like, what's the upside from romaine lettuce is kind of how I approach it, you know? But McDonald's here has an E. coli outbreak that has been linked to Quarter Pounders. And so I'm sorry, Romaine, for blaming you for the E. coli all the time, because in this case, it clearly wasn't you. It's been reported in 10 states, at least 49 people sick. One person has died after this E. coli outbreak. And so apparently, though, it's not the meat, it's the onions that is the problem here. And I'll quote here from the Wall Street Journal. Local restaurants have been instructed to remove the onions, and distribution of slivered onions in the affected area has been paused, McDonald's said. And so it appears to have been because of a single supplier that supplies 3 different McDonald's distribution centers that has caused this here. And so they are, again, basically pulling these from the menu, or in cases where they can't, just removing the onions on them. And just not great, you know. Not great is basically the best thing you can say about it, I think.
Yeah, it's a reminder of how good the food service industry, not service, but the production, well, I guess service might overlap with that a little bit, is at ensuring most of our food is clean and safe.
Remarkable.
I've never had an issue my entire life.
We've probably had some kind of,
maybe a mild GI reaction or something that I wasn't even aware of.
I don't know. Like, we've all had something that we've eaten where we're like, oh, gee, like, okay, I got to, like,
transient food or very fleeting,
yes, but nothing
mild
serious
food. That's sort of what I mean. Nor do I know anybody, and that's probably true of most of us. So to me, it's a testament, as tragic as it is, there was a death in this instance, and as nightmarish as this is for poor McDonald's. I say that because I love McDonald's. I think a lot of people do.
It's one of my favorites.
I would probably think twice for the next week or so.
Disagree. Safest time to do it.
No, yeah, maybe. But I can't. The behavioral, irrational as it is, the behavioral impulse is, avoid it. But you're absolutely right. They're going to be on their game.
I'm going to go for lunch tomorrow. Like, that's just, well, actually, I take it back. I'm not going to go for lunch tomorrow because tomorrow I am actually going to be on the Cape. We're going to be doing a live broadcast from the Doubletree Resort and Suites in Hyannis tomorrow. Ed Lambert, host of the WXTK Morning Show, is going to be joining us. And if you want, we do still have a couple spots that are available for a live broadcast of the Financial Exchange, followed by an educational lunch with the Armstrong Advisory Group. What topics are we going to be talking about? Well, look, we got less than 2 weeks until the presidential election, so we'll be talking about the impact of the election on markets, different policies that are being proposed and how they may affect the current economic landscape, and what volatility we might see as a result of the election. How do you sign up for the event? Visit armstrongadvisory.com/events. Just fill out the form there, and you're good to go for tomorrow. Again, that is armstrongadvisory.com/events.
The proceeding was paid for by Armstrong Advisory Group, a registered investment advisor. Nothing in the ad or in any Armstrong guide is specific financial, legal, or tax advice. Consult your own financial, tax, and estate planning advisors before making any investment decisions. Armstrong may contact you to offer investment advisory services.
Starbucks reported earnings yesterday after the bell, and they missed on top line, bottom line, and they suspended their fiscal guidance or their financial guidance for the next fiscal year. Despite that, the stock is down just 0.5% today. Kind of one of those situations where you're like, okay, is this bad news just being priced in at this point? And ultimately, new CEO Brian Niccol saying, look, we've got to, kind of get things moving again. Remember, Niccol is the person that went into Chipotle when they were having their problems with food safety and their branding. And the company was just, an absolute juggernaut ever since he, took over there. So investors are looking to see if he can do something similar with Starbucks at this point. I am not a coffee drinker, so I don't really visit any of these places, quite honestly. It's not something I really understand or know about, but the sense that I have gotten from people that have frequented Starbucks, it's not the same problem as 2007, where it was, hey, we have way too many stores, like the classic joke, hey, there's 4 corners on an intersection in New York and there's a Starbucks on each corner. It's not that. It's just the menu is bloated, the service times are abysmal, and there are other options that are out there that are now competitive from a quality standpoint. So I don't know. We'll see how this goes. Do either of you have any thoughts on this? Because you guys probably know this better than I do.
I only spend money there when somebody else is paying the bill. So when it's at an airport, for example, and I'm traveling for business.
Oh, sure. Yep.
Because it's expensive. And the menu is a little complicated and
boring.
Let's be honest. The menu at any coffee place is not good. Like regardless of which one you go to a Starbucks, everything you get there, doesn't matter what it is from a menu perspective. It's dry. It's it's just not good.
Inconsistent.
And it's hard to. They have their own language. So what the heck is a grande, macho, uber? What's roughly how many ounces is that? I have a hard time doing that.
Grande is 16.
Okay, thank you. And it probably says that. But even then, just give me a large, please.
Well, what is an ounce?
Give me a large
anyways,
black.
Mark?
Yeah.
Like let's
that I don't struggle with as much, but I still can't conceptualize. So I always struggle with what the heck? Can I have a black coffee or can I just have a green tea? So too many choices and a little too expensive for but I'm like a McDonald's, Dunkin' Donuts guy. So
Tuck, you used to be a big Starbucks guy and switched, correct?
Yeah.
What was the main thing that drove you away? Price?
Just more so favoring the local coffee shop. And making coffee more frequently at home. But overall, it's just inconsistency in pricing point.
So there's one other thing there that I find interesting is Starbucks rose to prominence in the late 90s, early 2000s. And Starbucks is kind of, if you went to a consulting firm and said, hey, generate me a business plan for a coffee shop that tries to mimic your local coffee shop.
It's this.
That's what Starbucks is.
Mm-hmm. And they've gone away from that.
And it's just something where I wonder if that lack of authenticity now, where you can get those authentic experiences more easily, because like there's boutique everything now. I mean, we've talked like for the last decade about the rise of craft beer, but craft coffee is a thing also, and you don't have to go to a giant place to try to get that high-end experience now, I guess is what I'm saying. So part of me looks at it and wonders, hey, has the zeitgeist, has it changed in the coffee space, and is there still a place for Starbucks like there used to be? Because it's an imitation.
Legit question.
And I just wonder if the imitation is good enough anymore to compete when there's so many other options out there. I don't know, but I'm not a coffee drinker, so this is me from an outside perspective looking in.
Well, Starbucks used to be the go-to meeting place for friends or business meetings. If you wanted to grab coffee or, a job interview or something, like, you're not going to do that experience at a Dunkin' Donuts. Dunkin' Donuts exists because Dunkin' Donuts is like you're in and out, boom, see you later. And whereas a Starbucks, yes, you have that in and out option, but it was also a place to meet up, hang out with whoever. And they've gone away from that. They put all their chips in the mobile basket, and it's just not resonating with its customers anymore. Especially with the app being a complete pile of garbage now. That needs a complete overhaul. Oh, it's so infuriating.
What are the problems with the app?
It's just like, if I want to add friggin' oat milk to the thing or whatever, you got to go to the creamer, and then it's just like a whole.
Sounds like you need less coffee,
process.
Tucker,
it's a whole process. It's
not more.
It's pretty much extra steps that it shouldn't have to take for a basic coffee order. Like, it's coffee. And it's just like extra steps that are not needed, and it pisses everyone off.
Does it?
Who just wants their friggin' coffee?
It would seem to me, and look, as someone who's not a coffee drinker, I'm just speculating here. Does the Starbucks app have a button for, like, my usual?
It does. It does have that. I'll give them that. But there's so many customizations at Starbucks, and that's what's attractive to customers, that it makes it frustrating when you want to change it up once in a while, especially if you're in the car in traffic. Like, let's be honest. Like, people are firing off mobile orders in traffic.
You know what the answer on this probably is?
What?
AI.
Sure. Whatever makes it quicker or faster.
I know that I think Brian Nichols is smart enough to not just be like, hey, we're going to try to, use AI to guess your order from now on, but wouldn't a lesser company, wouldn't that be the next place they go?
Somebody just texted in, I had a friend who spent $12 a day at Starbucks 5 years ago.
How many coffees is that?
Well, I assume that's food, too, and they would just go there every day, $12. Oof.
I don't know, like, look, I'm someone, I eat breakfast at home, I pack my lunch and bring it to the office. I don't like spending money on that stuff.
Yeah.
It just, I don't know. Quality of life.
Lunch is expensive now.
Lunch is really expensive.
Like, to get a basic lunch locally, like around here at least, it's like $15 for a basic lunch. It's expensive, man.
Packing lunch is the way to go, I'm telling you. Let's take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll do a little bit of stack roulette, and then we'll have some lunch.
This is your home for the most comprehensive coverage of the economy and the trends on Wall Street. This is the Financial Exchange Radio Network.
To fully maximize your Social Security benefits, it's important to understand how Social Security may affect your taxes. Hi, this is Mike Armstrong from the Armstrong Advisory Group, and when deciding to collect Social Security benefits, it's essential to consider how those benefits interact with your other income sources, your tax situation, and your long-term financial goals. As an example, if you have tax-free or after-tax options in retirement, you can structure your financial plan to manage your future tax burden. Collecting Social Security too early without careful planning could limit your ability to manage taxes later in life. Our new free guide is called Social Security and Taxes, and it unpacks these issues and more. Get your free copy today by calling 800-393-4001. That's 800-393-4001.
The proceeding was paid for by Armstrong Advisory Group, a registered investment advisor. Nothing in the ad or in any Armstrong guide is specific financial, legal, or tax advice. Consult your own financial, tax, and estate planning advisors before making any investment decisions. Armstrong may contact you to offer investment advisory services. Spouses generally serve as the beneficiary to your IRA or life insurance policy, but naming your estate the beneficiary has quite a few benefits. Cushing & Dolan are experts in elder law, and they can help you protect your assets from probate and the nursing home. By naming your estate as a beneficiary, you can avoid the probate process, lessen the chance of creating any income tax issues on your RMDs, and enjoy enhanced estate tax reduction. Call Cushing & Dolan right now at 866-848-5699 and ask for their brand new guide called Why Name Your Estate an IRA Beneficiary. Learn about these benefits and others and provide peace of mind for you and your family during your retirement years. That number again is 866-848-5699. Or you can request the guide online by visiting our website at LegalExchangeShow.com. That's LegalExchangeShow.com. The proceeding was paid for and the views expressed are solely those of Cushing & Dolan. Cushing & Dolan and or Armstrong Advisory may contact you offering legal or investment services. Cushing & Dolan and Armstrong Advisory do not endorse each other and are not affiliated. Every single day, more than 2,000 U.S. companies face a cyber threat or attack. The Boston Red Sox in Fenway Park chose Centripetal as their official cyber network security partner to ensure the protection of their network and ballpark. Intelligence is the answer to protecting your network, and Centripetal is the global leader of intelligence-powered cybersecurity. The choice is yours. Are you going to be another one of those attacked companies? Or are you ready to experience a radical new cybersecurity solution? Find out why the Red Sox chose Centripetal at www.centripetal.ai.
The Financial Exchange and Veterans Development Corporation are proud partners of the Disabled American Veterans Department of Massachusetts. The DAV provides thousands of hours of voluntary services at our VA medical centers and is the only DAV department in the country to lead a veterans housing initiative for single veterans and for those with families. These programs are critical to serving our veterans in their time of need. You can help our great American heroes by making a donation today. Please visit davma.org. That's davma.org.
It happens all over Massachusetts.
Can you tie my shoes?
In every home and every community.
Be careful on your bike.
Learning can happen anytime, anywhere.
We'll see you at practice this weekend.
And no matter how learning takes place in your family's life, DESE is there as your partner. The Massachusetts Department of Elementary and Secondary Education. Never stop learning. Find out more at mass.gov/back-to-school.
Sponsored by the Massachusetts Department for Elementary and Secondary Education.
As a busy mom to 4 kids, my to-do list is full.
Trying to fit in exercise, eating right, and prioritizing self-care can feel next to impossible.
While we can't add more hours to the day, we do have a great resource to help.
Go Red for Women has easy tips, tools, and information to help you and your family live a healthier life.
So to all the moms, the aunts, grandmothers, and amazing women out there doing it all,
visit goredforwomen.org/momlife today.
You take care of them, Go Red for Women will take care of you.
Find daily interviews and full shows of the Financial Exchange on our YouTube page. Get caught up on anything and everything you might have missed. This is the Financial Exchange Radio Network.
The ultimate Boston sports auction to benefit the Disabled American Veterans Department of Massachusetts is coming soon. Your chance to see the world champion Celtics, the Bruins, the Red Sox, and the Patriots, plus autographed merch from Pedro Martinez, Kristaps Porzingis, Brandon Carlo, and much more. One massive auction, 4 incredible experiences, and all to benefit the Disabled American Veterans Department of Massachusetts. The auction begins on November 4th at 11 a.m. That's Monday, November 4th at 11 a.m. Keep it here on the Financial Exchange and help support our great American heroes.
Mark, what do you have for me for Stack Roulette?
Always risky, I guess, Chuck, when businesses wade into politics. We all know that former President Trump visited a closed McDonald's last week and pretended to serve fries to pretend customers. A good, I guess, publicity stunt, but potentially bad for business. Wall Street Journal today reports that kind of amusingly that particular McDonald's is getting so-called review bombed on Yelp. So the 50% or so of the population, maybe it's a little more or less than that in that particular area, that doesn't like the former president is responding understandably, I guess, and predictably, I should say, not understandably, but predictably, by saying ugly things about this particular franchise on social media. And it does raise the question of why would you want to alienate half your potential customers?
Well, here's something I kind of want to dig into on this. Are there any lasting effects, actually, from this?
On the business, you mean?
Yeah. And like, you can look at, like, look at the stuff from the last decade that has been, hot button politically and how it may have, caused outcry at any particular point in time. Let's go back. I don't remember exactly when it was, probably like 2017, 2018. Maybe it was after. I really don't know when it was. But remember the NFL with the kneeling during the national anthem?
Sure.
Has there been any negative impact on the NFL's business over the last 5 years or however long it's been? No, the franchises are selling for more and more. You got prices for basically everything through the roof. The TV contracts are massive because it's the only product that you can draw 15 million people consistently week in and week out. And there's been basically nothing there. You look at... You remember Target with the transgender bathroom stuff that was going on, again, like 8-9 years ago? Is there any lasting impact to Target's bottom line? No, like there hasn't.
I don't even know how you'd measure it because it's hard to control for that.
Well, again, I think you can just like look and be like, hey, does this look like a business that's permanently lost half its customers? And the answer is no, like it doesn't. Like you can kind of go down the list of all these different things and be like, hey, it hasn't really impacted. The only one that I think that you can point to where, there's been any kind of meaningful shift, and even that has started to reverse now after like a year or so, was Bud Light last year. And again, even that a year later is kind of, trending back towards where it was now. So I look at, hey, do you want to get involved politically? And look, the answer would probably be like, no, like what's the point of, wading into those waters? But I'm also uncertain that it actually causes any kind of long-term shift for the business, so long as you can weather whatever the short-term, social media firestorm is.
Yeah, I guess I always go back to Michael Jordan's maxim of the other political party buys sneakers too. Why would I want to endorse one guy and alienate half of my potential customers? I always thought those were very wise words. And again, this is not a cause. This is a person. Whether or not that makes a difference, I don't know.
Yeah, so I don't know. I'm not sure that there's anything meaningful in terms of any long-term impact from any of this stuff. Like, I don't think it really matters.
I found it funny and predictable. That's all.
Yeah, of course. I mean, yeah, exactly. Like, that's basically, what you would get out of it. Let's see. Do I want to do Netflix or Costco? Let's talk Costco. They are partnering with Peloton in order to sell Peloton Bike Pluses in stores over the next few months. And they are going to be selling them at pretty substantial discounts to what they typically are offered at. On retail online is $24.95, but through Costco in-store it'll be $19.99 and online at $21.99. And as you look at Peloton, remember, this is one of those pandemic darlings where, hey, the only way that any of us were going to work out forever was in, a connected fitness class on a really expensive bike. And now free cash flow is still negative. They're not profitable. Margins are, obviously bad. And the company has, about $697 million in cash and short-term investments on hand. And they're bleeding cash at a rate of about $90 million a year. It's not really great. So this is Peloton trying to figure out, hey, how do we recapture growth, but hey, how can we get to profitability just through selling more of this stuff? And unfortunately for Peloton, it looks like, hey, you're in the fitness space. Most of the time you're just a fad in that space. It's really hard to have any staying power because people just move on to the next cool thing that has some influencer that they like on TikTok, and we all have Bowflexes sitting in our attics and basements now. I don't, but,
potential market's a lot smaller than they hoped.
Let's take a quick break here for the rest of the day. Markets remain negative. We'll see you tomorrow. Tesla earnings after the bell today. We'll report on that as well.